Hello everyone and welcome to the social science session. So in today's video we will be discussing the lesson motions of the earth. So in this lesson we will be talking about the different motions, different movements of the earth. The main points for focus, the main points for discussion will be rotation, effects of rotation, and circle of illumination. What is circle of illumination? Further, we'll talk about revolution and finally effects of revolution. So let's begin. Right in the beginning, let me tell you, in ancient times when people were not known to the facts, they believed that the earth is stationary, the earth is not moving, and the other celestial bodies, other heavenly bodies, they are moving. But it was Nicholas Copernicus who proved that the earth is not stationary. The earth is not fixed at its own place. It is constantly in motion. It constantly makes movements, right? So, what are the two main movements by the earth? Rotation and revolution. So, the first is rotation and the second most important movement is revolution. So now let us begin, let us understand what is rotation. So rotation is that movement of the earth which is on its own axis, right? It spins like a top on its own axis. This is rotation. And what is revolution? The movement of the earth around the sun. That is revolution. So the sun is stationary, the sun is fixed at its own place, and it's the earth which goes around the sun, right? And this movement, the entire movement around the sun, that is called revolution, whereas the movement of the earth on its own axis, that is rotation. Fine. Now let us understand in detail the rotation of the earth. So the earth rotates upon its imaginary line axis like a top on a potter's wheel from west to east. So let us understand it through this diagram. Suppose this is the earth and the imaginary line, this is the axis. These are the poles, this is the equator, right? So equator runs from the center of the earth, which divides the earth into two equal halves, isn't it? The northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. So this imaginary line, this is called axis, right? And the movement of the earth on its own axis, on this imaginary line called axis, is called rotation. This movement is called rotation. And it is because of this movement on its axis that we experience day and night. So the Earth's axis is not perpendicular. That is, it's not straight, right? It is tilted, as you can see it in this diagram. The Earth's axis is little tilted, and that is why we see even in a globe we'll see that the Earth is little tilted. It's not straight. So it is inclined from the vertical line at an angle of 23.5 degrees. So if we draw a straight line, we'll see that this angle is 23.5 degrees. That is the straight line here and the axis. This angle is 23.5 degrees. So this shows that the earth is slightly tilted. It's not straight. So how does it, this tilt is called the inclination of the earth's axis. So this tilt, this angle, this is known as the inclination of the Earth's axis, right? Now, how does it, how does day and night occur? Obviously, it's spinning, it's moving like a top. Now, the part which is facing the sun, that is the day. That part experiences day. And the part which is in the shadow area, right? The part which is not receiving the rays of the sun, that is the night. Again, in due course of movement, the dark part, when faces the sun, it becomes daytime, and the light part, the part which was now receiving the sunlight, has gone to the back side, and that is why it has become the shaded area, the dark area. So it's the night time in that part, right? So in practically we can see, we must all of you must know that when it is daytime in India, it's night time in America, which is just at the back side, right? Back side of India, on the other side of the globe, right? So when it is daytime in India, it's night in America. When it is daytime in America, it's night time in India. So why is all this? It's all because of the rotation of the Earth, right? So the Earth takes 24 1/4 days, hours, to complete one rotation, one complete spin. And therefore 24 hours, there are 24 hours in a day, right? So this is the daily motion of the Earth. It is also known as the Earth Day. Now, what are the effects of rotation? Due to the rotation of the Earth, day and night occur. This is what we discussed just now. A day consists of 24 hours. As the Earth rotates, it appears that the sun, the moon and the stars are moving from east to west. But actually, what is the movement? In which direction does the Earth move? From west to east. So since it is the spin, the movement is from west to east, it appears that the sun, the stars, they are moving in east to west direction. The concept of direction based on sunrise and sunset has been given by it. So sunrise, sunset, this all comes from the movement, from this movement of the Earth, that is rotation. Bulging of the Earth at the equator and flattening at the poles are also caused due to this rotation, due to constant spinning, right? The center part has become the most bulged part, that is the fattest part, and the poles have flattened. It is all because of this movement, because of the rotation of the Earth. Then movements of wind, oceans, currents, that is water currents, ocean currents, and tides are also caused due to rotation. So rotation causes so many things, isn't it? These are the effects of rotation. Now next we talk about circle of illumination. Now let us look at this diagram and understand what is circle of illumination. So this is our Earth and these are the poles. This is North Pole and this is South Pole, and here runs our axis. That is the imaginary line from North Pole to South Pole on which the Earth spins, right? Now, what is circle of illumination? Circle, we get heat and light from the sun. The Earth is spherical in shape. This is also, we know that the Earth is not exactly round. It is spherical in shape. Due to this, only 1/2 of it that faces the sun gets illuminated. So what is the meaning of illuminate or illuminated? Means getting light. So if here's the sun and this part is getting the light, right? So we see that this is the part which has the daytime, isn't it? This is the daytime because it is receiving the light of the sun, and this is the illuminated part, the lightened part. And what about this? This is the dark part, which is not receiving the light of the sun, right? So now what is circle of illumination? The other half that does not get the sun remains in darkness, of course. Therefore, at time, one hemisphere of the earth receives sunlight and the other receives, no sunlight, therefore dark. So the other hemisphere away from the sun experiences night. The imaginary line that separates the lightened part of the earth from the dark part is called circle of illumination. So this is the imaginary line which is separating the dark part and the lighted part, right? So this is circle of illumination. So I hope this is clear to everyone. Circle of illumination is nothing, it's just the dividing line or the dividing circle, we would say, which separates the dark side and the light side, the bright side, due to sun's light. Then we move on to because of this movement, days and nights are caused. So let us talk about in detail the places at the equator, the places which are facing the sun, that has day, and the places which are not facing the sun, that is on the opposite side, that which is the darker side, that's the night time, right? So the duration of day and night keeps on changing throughout the year. This happens due to the inclination of the earth's axis. Therefore, for one half of the year, the earth comes in such a position that the north pole is inclined towards the sun and the south pole is away from the sun. So the earth is moving, it's spinning on its axis as well as going around the sun. So on its due course of movement, it happens that the earth is in such a position that the north pole faces the sun, the north pole is closer to the sun. So in that case, obviously the days will be longer in the northern hemisphere and the nights would be longer in the southern hemisphere. Why so? Because the southern hemisphere, the south pole, is away from the sun. So southern hemisphere will receive, since it is away from the sun, it will receive less amount of sunlight and for a shorter duration. So the nights would be longer in southern hemisphere and days would be longer in northern hemisphere when the north pole is facing the sun. And again, in due course of movement, when the north pole is away from the sun and the south pole is near the sun, closer to the sun, so the days will be longer in southern hemisphere and nights would be shorter, and similarly the nights would be longer in northern hemisphere and days would be shorter. So this is how rotation affects the length, the duration of day and night. The places at the equator always have equal days and nights because the sun shines vertically at the equator throughout the year. So what about the equator? It remains at the same position throughout the year because whichever way the earth tilts, the equator is the center, receiving the same amount of sunlight, that is the vertical rays of the sun throughout the year. And therefore, the duration of days and nights, they remain same throughout the year. Next, we move on to revolution. So what is revolution? Revolution is the movement of the earth around the sun, and the path on which it goes round the sun, that is known as orbit. Now, orbit is not a circle, exact circle. It is elliptical in shape. So what is elliptical? This is elliptical, right? The sun is there in the center and the earth moves, spinning around like a top and going around the sun. So this is known as revolution, the movement of the earth round the sun. Now, what is the duration? The earth takes 365 1/4 days, right? 365 1/4 days to complete one revolution. 24 hours to complete one rotation and 365 1/4 days, 1/4 of a day to complete one revolution. So maybe 24 hours and few more, 24 hours and maybe some more time, right? So 365 days, the exact count is 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes and 56 seconds to complete one revolution. So roughly we take it as 365 1/4 days. Now, after every in order to balance, after every 4 years, and that is the 4th year, 1, 2, 3 and the 4th year is considered as a leap year, where the month of February has 29 days. So 1/4, 1/4, 1/4 and 1/4, which makes one complete day. That day is added in the month of February, right? That is therefore leap year has 29 days in the month of February, right? Now, what are the effects of revolution? Difference in the duration of day and night, of course, because of movement of the earth around the sun. The duration of day and night there's a difference in the duration of day and night. Remember the tilt I said, when the south pole is towards the earth, the days are longer. When the north pole is towards the earth, the days are longer there, isn't it? Difference in the distribution of heat over the surface of the earth. So obviously when the side which is facing the sun obviously gets more heat, so the distribution of heat is more, it receives more heat, whereas the side which is away from the earth, the hemisphere which is away from the sun, that receives less heat. And this is the reason we have season cycle, right? The cycle of seasons happen because of this. So obviously you can well imagine, when the north pole, the northern hemisphere is facing the sun, it's the summer there, and the south pole has winter time. And when the the southern hemisphere has winter time, and when the south pole is facing the sun, it's closer to the sun, then the summers are there, and the north pole, northern hemisphere, experiences winter time. And this is the reason we celebrate winter Christmas, whereas in Australia they celebrate summer Christmas. So these are the effects of revolution. So in this video we talked about the effects, what is rotation, what is revolution, what are the effects of rotation, what are the effects of revolution, and of course we talked about circle of illumination. So I hope the chapter till here is clear to everyone. In the next video we will be discussing the rest of the chapter. So with this I wind up here. Thank you so much everyone.